I'm Laura, 21, female, and this is the story of how I walked away from a family that never truly saw me. It all started with my parents' divorce. They were always arguing over the dumbest things. My dad could never be pleased, and my mom, well, she ran out of patience long before the marriage ended. So the split felt inevitable. I even thought life might get better afterward, quieter, calmer. I was wrong. They agreed to split custody. Weekdays with dad, weekends with mom, since she had a demanding job. It was exhausting bouncing between two homes. I was an only child and felt lonelier than ever, with no one to talk to about how broken everything felt. 3 months after the divorce, Dad dropped a bomb. He announced he was getting remarried. Mary, his fiancée, and her daughter Jessica were moving in. He acted like I should be thrilled to have a new family, but I was anything but. I didn't want a new mom or a new sister. I just wanted stability. Mary seemed cold, but polite at first. Jessica, though, she was a perfectly polished 14-year-old. All sweet smiles and fake charm. To everyone else, she was an angel. But to me, she quickly became a nightmare. From the start, it was clear, she was the favorite. Her birthday came just 2 months after mine. Dad threw her a party with decorations, cake, the works. I hadn't even gotten a happy birthday. He had forgotten mine entirely. He started driving Jess to school every morning while I took the bus like some background extra. And every time I messed up, no matter how small, it was, "Why can't you be more like Jessica?" It got worse. Jess constantly took my things without asking, my clothes, makeup, even school supplies. One time she wore my favorite sweater, and when I asked her to stop, she ran to Dad crying. His response? "You need to learn to share." By the time I was 16, I had checked out emotionally. I gave up trying to fit into their happy little family. I got a part-time job and started saving. Eventually, I bought my own car. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My mom helped with the down payment, but I handled all the insurance, gas, and maintenance myself. Dad didn't contribute a penny. He was too busy funding whatever Jessica wanted. Then Jess totaled her car. She started begging to use mine. I said no every time, firmly. But one day, I came home and my car was gone. My gut told me exactly what had happened. Sure enough, she had taken it without permission. When she returned that night, the front was smashed in. No apology. She just handed me the keys like it was nothing. Furious, I went straight to Dad. Finally, I thought he'd take my side. But instead, he lectured me about being selfish, for not letting her borrow it in the first place. Mary backed him up. It was like they had rehearsed it. They made me feel like I was crazy for being upset. Jess sat there with her fake innocent face, completely unbothered. I was done. The very next day, I packed my things and moved in with my mom. My dad didn't try to stop me. No text. No call. Nothing. 5 years passed. I didn't hear from any of them. I built my own life, got into college, found a job, moved off campus into a small place of my own. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for once, I was happy. Then, one day, I started getting repeated calls from an unknown number. I ignored them, assuming it was spam. But eventually, curiosity got the best of me. I picked up. It was Jessica. After 5 years of silence, she greeted me like we'd talked yesterday. "Hey Laura, it's been so long. How have you been?" I kept the conversation polite, but short. She quickly got to the point. She was moving to my city for a job, had lost her place, and needed somewhere to crash. She wanted to stay with me. Rent-free. For an undetermined amount of time. I was stunned. The nerve. She didn't ask, she assumed. And apparently, Dad had told her where I lived. I took a breath and told her gently but firmly, "I don't think that's going to work. I don't have the space, and I've got a lot going on." She tried pushing. "I won't take up much space. I don't even have that much stuff. I can't pay rent right away, but you've got the place all to yourself, right?" It wasn't even a request, it was an expectation. But I've worked too hard to build the life I have. I wasn't about to let the girl who stole and wrecked my car back into it. "I'm sorry, Jess. I can't help you," I said. You'll have to find another place. She started guilt-tripping me. You're my sister. You can't leave me hanging like this. Now I was her sister? Where was that family loyalty when she and Dad treated me like trash? I kept my cool. Look, I'm sorry you're struggling, but I'm not the one to help you. That's just how it is. Her voice changed in an instant, from fake sweet to bitter. I can't believe you're being like this. You've got your life together. This isn't fair, Laura. Since when had anything been fair for me? I don't owe you anything, I said firmly. You and Dad made your choices. Now I'm making mine. She hung up on me with a snide, thanks for nothing. And that was it. I stared at my phone, feeling a mix of emotions, anger, relief, disbelief. But mostly, I felt proud. I had stood my ground. I've learned that if you don't protect your peace, people will walk all over you. And I'm done being walked on. The call that changed everything. After the whole mess with Jessica, I figured things would go quiet again, like they had for the past 5 years. Honestly, I was relieved. I told her no, and I didn't feel bad about it. She didn't deserve my help. Not after everything. But life doesn't let you move on that easily, right? A few days after that blow-up with her, I was at home, trying to focus on schoolwork when my phone rang. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was my dad. Yeah, that dad. The one who hadn't contacted me once in 5 years. The one who vanished after everything went down and never looked back. Hello, I said, trying to keep it neutral. Laura, he said in that same serious, annoyed tone he always used, like I was about to get scolded. And just like that, I knew this wasn't going to be a nice conversation. Hi, Dad, I said, already feeling the tension in my shoulders. I heard from Jessica, he began. And there it was. Oh yeah? I said, trying to keep my voice even. He sighed, the kind of sigh that made it clear he thought I was the problem here. She told me you refused to help her, he said. She needed a place to stay, and you just turned her away. How could you do that to your sister after everything? This man, who hadn't spoken to me in half a decade, was calling now to accuse me of being selfish, all because I didn't let the same girl who wrecked my car, ghosted me, and ignored me for years, crash at my place. Dad, I said, trying to stay calm, Jessica and I haven't spoken in 5 years. She took my car without asking, totaled it, and you didn't even care. You didn't check on me when I moved out. Now she suddenly needs something and I'm supposed to just forget all that? You're still holding on to that. He snapped. She's your family. You need to get over it, like it was just some minor argument. Like it hadn't been years of being ignored and pushed aside while he doted on Jessica like she was his real daughter. I wasn't going to let him twist the story and make me the villain. It's not just about the car, I said, sharper now. You and Jessica made my life hell. You only paid attention to me when I was in trouble or needed to be corrected. I'm not going to let someone who treated me like garbage walk back into my life just because now she needs something. There was a pause. For a second, I thought maybe, I'd finally gotten through. But no. Instead, he exploded. You're so selfish, he yelled. All these years, I thought you'd grow up and learn how to be part of a family. But you're just as inconsiderate as ever. Jessica needed you, and you turned your back on her. What kind of person does that? I couldn't believe it. This man, who hadn't spoken to me in years, who hadn't cared whether I was alive or not, was now accusing me of being selfish. You have no idea what my life has been like these past 5 years, I said, my voice shaking from anger. You never asked. You didn't care when I left. You didn't care when I was struggling, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Now you want to lecture me about family? You don't get to do that. He was silent. But I could imagine him pacing, trying to find a way to make me feel small again. You're going to regret this one day, he finally said, his voice low, full of bitterness. When you've pushed your whole family away and have no one left to help you, you'll realize how wrong you are. I'm disappointed in you, Laura. The breaking point. I'd spent years wondering why my dad didn't love me the way he loved Jessica. Why I was treated like a burden instead of a daughter. But right then, I realized I didn't need his approval. I didn't need to keep breaking myself in half just to be enough for him. If you're disappointed in me for standing up for myself, I said, voice steady, then so be it. But I'm not going to apologize for keeping someone toxic out of my life. You and Jessica made your choices. Now I'm making mine. He didn't respond. He did what he always did. Hung up. Just like that, the conversation, and the relationship, was over. I sat there staring at my phone, trying to process everything. It hurt. Not because I expected better, but because some part of me had still held out hope. Hope that maybe one day we could have a real father-daughter relationship, that maybe he'd realize I mattered too. But now I knew, it wasn't going to happen. And weirdly, I wasn't sad. I felt relieved, like I could finally stop chasing something that was never coming, like I could finally let go. I had my own life now. And I didn't need him to be happy. I was free. For the first time in a long time, I could finally move on. Update 2, the birthday call. A little context before I get into this. My birthday has never been a big deal. Growing up, it was always overlooked or brushed off, especially after Jessica showed up and took over the spotlight. I got used to it. These days, I don't expect much. Maybe a couple of texts from close friends. A casual dinner. Something quiet, low-key. This year, I planned nothing special. Just a day to chill and maybe treat myself to takeout. It started like any other birthday. I woke up, checked my phone, some happy birthday messages from friends. I smiled, replied to a few, and got on with my day. Then my phone buzzed again. It was my dad. Same dad who hadn't called me on my birthday in 5 years. The same dad I had just had a massive blow-up with days ago after the whole Jessica situation. I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to let it ring. I figured it'd just be more drama. What? Curiosity, maybe? Or some tiny, pathetic hope that he was calling to do the one thing I'd wanted from him for years, just say happy birthday. Oh. I answered. Hey, I said, keeping my voice flat, not too eager, not too annoyed. Laura, he began, using that overly formal tone, like he was starting a business meeting. I've been thinking about our last conversation. Here we go again, I thought. I braced for another guilt trip. But then he surprised me. Listen. It's your birthday, and I know we've had our differences. I just wanted to say, happy birthday. For a second, I didn't even know what to say. That was the first time in years he'd acknowledged my birthday, let alone called me. It wasn't a heartfelt apology, but it was something. Thanks, I said, a little stunned. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. There was an awkward pause. I could almost picture him sitting there, trying to figure out how to keep this civil without diving into the mess we'd already gone through. So, how are you doing? He asked, and I knew instantly, he wasn't really asking. It felt rehearsed. Like he was checking off boxes in his head. I'm good, I replied, keeping it surface level. Just school, work, the usual. Another pause. Then, like clockwork, he shifted. Jessica told me you were pretty harsh with her the other day, he said, his voice slipping back into that condescending, judgmental tone. I don't understand why you're still holding on to all that anger. And there it was. Of course this wasn't a real birthday call. This was him trying to smooth things over between me and Jessica, as if that's what birthdays are for. As if all the years of neglect and disrespect didn't matter. As if I was the one who needed to make amends. Dad, I said, keeping my voice calm even though I could feel the frustration bubbling again. It's not about anger. It's about boundaries. I've moved on. But that doesn't mean I'm going to pretend nothing ever happened. You can't expect me to forget everything just because it's easier for you. You need to let go of the past, he cut in, not even listening. She's trying to move forward, and you should too. This isn't what family does. We're supposed to support each other. That hit me hard. Where was that support when I needed it? When I left? When I was struggling alone? I couldn't keep it in anymore. I did support her, I snapped. For years. I put up with everything, being ignored, pushed aside, treated like crap by her and Mary. I swallowed all of it because I thought maybe one day things would change. But they didn't. And now that I'm finally standing up for myself, I'm the bad guy? How is that fair? For a second, I hoped I'd gotten through, but no. He just sighed, long, exasperated, like I was exhausting him. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be, Laura, he said. Jessica's your sister. You need to act like it. And that's when I realized, He was never going to get it. No matter what I said. No matter how many ways I tried to explain, he was always going to take her side. She was the daughter he chose. I was just the one he tolerated. I am acting like it, I said, my voice cool now. I'm acting like the sister she deserves. You don't get to force me to forgive her just to make your life easier. I've moved on. You should too. The line went quiet again. This time, I think he knew he'd lost the argument. Fine, he said sharply. But don't come crying to me when you've burned every bridge you have left. And with that, he hung up. I sat there staring at the screen. Not mad. Just tired of trying to get him to see me. Tired of hoping for something that was never going to happen. It wasn't the birthday I expected, but maybe it was the one I needed. Because now I knew for sure, my dad isn't going to change and I don't need him to. I'm fine on my own. Update 3. After that birthday call from my dad, I really thought I was done with them. I mean, it was pretty clear he wasn't interested in actually hearing me or understanding anything from my side. I had drawn my line in the sand, and I was ready to move on for good, or at least that's what I thought. But life always seems to throw one more thing at you when you least expect it, right? This time, it came in the form of another call, but not from my dad. This time it was from my mom. Now, my relationship with my mom has always been kind of distant. She wasn't really involved in the whole mess with my dad and Jessica because, well, she had her own stuff going on. Her job kept her super busy, and honestly, she never seemed to want to get involved. She was more of a you handle your own problems type of person. So when she called, I wasn't sure what to expect. We hadn't really talked about any of the drama that had been happening recently, and I figured maybe she was just calling to check in or ask about school. Hey, Mom, I answered, trying to sound casual, even though I was a little on edge after everything that had been happening. Hi, Laura, she replied, her voice sounding more serious than usual. I wanted to talk to you about something. It's about your dad and Jessica. Here we go again, I thought, already bracing myself for whatever was coming next. I know things have been rough between you and them, she started, but your dad called me yesterday. He's really worried about you, Laura. He thinks you've been shutting everyone out. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Worried about me? That was rich coming from a guy who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years, except to yell at me for not letting Jessica move in. Mom, I'm not shutting everyone out, I said, trying to stay calm. I just don't want to deal with people who only care about me when they need something. Dad's only calling because Jessica wants something, and I'm not playing that game anymore. I get that, she said, in that way people do when they clearly don't get it. But family is family, Laura. You can't just cut them out of your life forever. At some point, you're going to need them. I couldn't believe she was saying this after everything that had happened. After all the years of being ignored, suddenly I'm supposed to need them? Mom, I don't need them, I said, a little sharper than I meant to. I've been fine on my own. I'm in school. I'm working. I've built my own life. They haven't been there for me, so why should I be there for them now? She sighed, and I could tell she was getting frustrated. Look, I'm not saying what they did was right, but sometimes you have to be the bigger person. Holding on to all this resentment is only going to hurt you in the long run. There it was again. Another person telling me to just let it go, like it was so easy, like years of neglect and being treated like an outsider in my own family could just be forgotten because family. Mom, this isn't about resentment, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's about respect. They've never respected me, and I'm not going to keep letting them walk all over me just because we're related. I've spent too long trying to be the bigger person, and it's gotten me nowhere. She didn't say anything for a minute, and I could hear her thinking it over. I hoped for a second that maybe she'd finally understand, but then she said the last thing I expect. You know your dad's right, she said quietly. You've always been so stubborn. You never let anyone in. That's why things are like this. I was stunned. Stubborn? Me? I'd been bending over backward for years, trying to fit into a family that never wanted me, and now I was the stubborn one? Are you serious right now? I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. I'm the one who's been stubborn? I'm the one who's wrong here? I'm just saying, she replied, her voice calm like she was giving me some kind of life lesson. If you don't learn to let people in, you're going to end up alone. That was it. The final straw. I couldn't believe that even my mom, the one person who should have understood what I'd been through, was blaming me for everything. Mom, if letting people in means getting treated like garbage, then yeah, maybe I will end up alone, I snapped. But at least I won't be miserable. I'm done being the one who has to make everything better. If they want to fix things, that's on them, not me. She didn't say anything after that. I think she realized she'd pushed too far. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I gotta go, I said, cutting the conversation short before she could say anything else. I didn't wait for her to finish. I hung up and just sat there staring at my phone, trying to wrap my head around the fact that even my own mom was siding with them. At that moment, I realized something. I didn't need their approval, not from my dad, not from Jessica, and not even from my mom. I'd spent too long trying to get people to see me, to value me, and all it had done was make me feel worse. So yeah, maybe I was stubborn. Maybe I was shutting people out. But if that meant protecting myself from getting hurt again, then so be it. I'd rather be alone and happy than surrounded by people who didn't really care about me. And with that, I finally felt like I could move on for real.